All right, so we're going to cover the gospel and the second coming. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this down into three sections. Okay, so we're going to start with understanding the Greek worldview. And really, what this is going to be about is showing that just by mistranslating one Greek word, the entire message of Jesus can be completely misunderstood and lost to us in the modern world. So when we're reading our English Bibles, we're not hearing the same message that an ancient Greek or a Roman or a Jew would have heard in the first century. Okay, so that's the first part. That's what we're going to cover now. And then we're going to cover history in the first century and heaven and earth and the temple of God and what this means. Okay, so we're going to cover Matthew 24 and Luke 21. And we're going to just try to find this history. All right, so Jesus says that false prophets and messiahs will arise, wars and rumors of wars, famines, earthquakes, Christian persecution, the abomination of desolation, the second coming, and heaven and earth shall pass away. All right, so what if all these things already happened in the first century? So if you're a first century Jew, Greek, or Roman, and you saw all these things happen in perfect sequence, would you honestly think that this is a future event? Or would you think, wow, this is amazing? Everything Jesus and the apostles and the prophets said came true, right? So this is what we're going to cover. This is going to be more section 2. And then we're going to end with the book of Revelation. And we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to overlay what's the book of Revelation saying, and what does the history in the first century say? And do they match, right? That's what we're looking for. So let's just do a review of the last video, Daniel. So what we learned in the last video is that in order for all things to be fulfilled, right, it has to happen at the 10th Caesar. It's outlined by Jesus and Daniel when all things written shall be fulfilled, okay? So we learn that the fourth kingdom, Rome, will conquer the Greek kingdoms. There will be 10 Caesars until the time of the end. A small kingdom or king will rise from Rome and cause the fall of 3 Caesars. They will change the laws, specifically the laws of Moses. Okay, this isn't talking about changing Greek laws or Roman laws or American laws. The law, when it's talked about in Daniel, is talking about the laws of Moses. And the laws of Moses have been abolished. Okay, it's all been fulfilled. So this is it's impossible for this to be a future event, since Christ fulfilled the law, abolished it, and it's not coming back. So the laws of Moses would have to come back. You'd have to undo the crucifixion. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, so they will change laws and persecute God's people. They will kill the Messiah and bring destruction on the city and temple. From the time the daily sacrifices are taken away, there will be a period of 1,335 days. Now, there's also 1,290 days. And what this is talking about, it's talking about the cleansing of Judea. And we know that from the time the daily sacrifices were taken away, and you count 1,290 days, Judea has been cleansed. All that remains is Jerusalem and Masada, and Jerusalem, at the 1,335-day period, Jerusalem is now fully surrounded, the siege has begun, and the Jews are about to get their final blow, right? And they can no longer persecute Christians. Okay, the end will come after a 42-month period by the time of the 10th Caesar, and we learned that Vespasian, it took him exactly 42 months to cleanse Judea and destroy Jerusalem and the temple. Okay, when the power of the holy people is scattered and Jerusalem and the temple are destroyed, everything written will be fulfilled. Not partially fulfilled, not kind of fulfilled. It will all be fulfilled. All of Daniel's prophecies will be over. Jesus said, we'll cover this. Okay, so when did Daniel write? The Bible says Daniel wrote during the Neo-Babylonian period into the Medo-Persian period in the 6th century BC. Scholars say Daniel wrote in 200 BC to 167 BC, but we learn that everything that Daniel prophesied, all the prophecies of Daniel have to finish in this period, and they happened with frightening precision. All right? So let's talk about, when did Jesus say the end will come? I'm just gonna cover this again in a little bit more in detail right now. So, and when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Let them which are in New York, does it say New York? No, it's Judea. It's a very specific region. It's a region that's not even called Judea anymore, all right? This is Palestine, and now the Jews have renamed it to Israel, all right? And Jesus is telling the people in Judea, flee to the mountains, okay? And that's exactly what the Christians do. When they see the Roman armies coming, he tells them to run and flee. And we're going to talk about this later in the book of Revelation. And there were two times where the Roman armies came. The first time was after the daily sacrifices were taken away. Then that Roman army left, and they got slaughtered in a massacre, the Battle of Bet Horon. And we're going to talk about that. So Christians saw a Roman army come, they surrounded the city, and then they left. They didn't have enough men to take the city. They were surrounded by Judeans. It wasn't a good time to siege the city. So the Romans left. So all the Christians would have saw that. They would have saw the daily sacrifices were removed. A Roman army came, a Roman army left, and that would have given them their chance to flee the city. All right? So let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out. And let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. All right. Now, the reason he's saying people that are in the countries don't come here, it's to do with the Passover. It has to do with Jews returning to Jerusalem. And that's according to the laws of Moses. And what Jesus is pretty much saying here, don't follow the laws of Moses now. When you see this happening, run and flee. Don't come to Jerusalem. Don't partake in the Passover. That stuff's over. This is after the crucifixion. So the law's been fulfilled. The prophets have been fulfilled. All that's left to do is to fulfill the final thing, which is the destruction and the scattering of the holy people. All right? So Jesus also says, but I tell you the truth. Okay? I tell you of a truth. There be some standing here which shall not taste of death till they see the kingdom of God. All right, so people alive at Jesus' time will see the fulfillment. All right, they're going to see all this stuff. All right, but when they persecute you in this city, flee you into another. For verily I say unto you, you shall not have gone over the cities of Israel till the Son of Man be come. All right, so what Jesus is saying here is you're not going to have time to go through all the cities of Israel. That includes Judea, that includes Samaria, north and south. You're not going to have time to go through all those cities before I come back. That's what Jesus is saying. I don't know how much more clear Jesus can be. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. All right? He's not talking about our generation. He's talking about the generation in front of him. All right? Again, verily I say unto you, there be some standing here which shall not taste of death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Do you believe Jesus? All right? Now again, Daniel is going to say that when are the end of all these wonders, all the prophecies of the book of Daniel, when are they going to end? They're going to end after a 42-month period that's going to end when God has accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people. All these things shall be finished at that point. That's going to happen when the temple is destroyed and Jerusalem, and it's over. All right? Jesus agrees with Daniel. Again, when you shall see Jerusalem comes with armies, all things written may be fulfilled, for these are the days of vengeance. All right? Great. Now, the question is to seal or not to seal, right? That really is the question. So we're going to compare Daniel and John. And in Daniel, what we read is, but thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. And I heard, but I understood not. Then said I, O Lord, O my Lord, what shall be the end of these things? And he said, Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed to the time of the end. Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. So what's happening here is God is telling Daniel, relax. This is not for you, Daniel. This is a future event. Daniel, you're going to rest. You're going to go and rest with your fathers until the end of days. You will take your spot. But this is for the future, is what Daniel is told. Now, Christians will point out knowledge shall be increased. Okay? And that is very true for our world today. It's absolutely true that we are living in an unprecedented time where, for the first time in history, the horse and the sail rowboats are not the best form of transportation. We have the combustion engines, we have submarines and battle tanks and cars and airplanes. Knowledge has definitely been increased, with the internet and everything. But this was also true in the first century. Understand that for the first time in world history, the entire Mediterranean was at peace. That the Romans had conquered the whole Mediterranean, all the pirates had been removed from the Mediterranean, there were patrol boats patrolling all the trade in Rome. You could be a Roman living in England, in Britain, and get on a boat, leave your Roman villa, leave your servants and your workers to manage your house, your farm. You're going to get on a boat from England and you're going to travel to Jerusalem or to Egypt or to Rome or wherever, Asia Minor. You're going to go wherever you want. And your land is going to be kept safe. And with this safety and with this trade and with all this prosperity under Rome, the knowledge and wisdom and all these the knowledge taught in these kingdoms, in these worlds, are going to be free to travel across the Mediterranean from England to Mesopotamia. So you could leave your home, travel with your family, go on a vacation, see Egypt, see the pyramids, see Jerusalem, see all these ancient worlds, go to Mesopotamia, and you were protected by the Roman guards, you were protected by the Roman ships on the Mediterranean. This was also an unprecedented time in world history, and everyone spoke Greek. So from Britain to Mesopotamia, you could talk to people, learn about other cultures. Everyone spoke one language. You spoke your native language, but for the most part, everyone understood Greek, very similar to English today. All right? So Daniel is told, seal it up. This is a future event. But then we come to John. This is the first verse in the book of Revelation. The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent and signified it by his messenger unto his servant John. And how does the book of Revelation end? And he saith unto me, seal not the saying of the prophecy of this book, for the time is at hand. Daniel, seal this up. Don't worry about it. This is a future event. John, get this message out now. Do not seal this. So let's put this into perspective. Daniel, seal it up. John, don't seal this up. Seal not the saying of the prophecy of this book, for the time is at hand. So let's put that into perspective. Daniel is writing in the 6th century BC. John is writing under Roman rule in the 1st century. Okay? So what is being said is, Daniel, you're writing about the future. And there's a 600-year difference between John and Daniel, all right? And how Christians interpret this is, well, John is also a future event, 2,000 years into the future. All right? So, Daniel, relax. This is a future event. John, the time is at hand and will shortly come to pass. Does that make any sense? Does that make any sense at all? What is really the difference for us, whether it's 2,000 years ago or 2,600 years ago? For us, 2,000 years after John, it makes no difference. How many generations have come and gone, right? And that's a problem because I believe everyone in the first century, all the first century Christians, even probably into the second century, believed this was a fully fulfilled book. It's not until the Roman Church is established and the church fathers come into the picture that they go, well, this is a future event. It hasn't happened yet. We have to wait for Jesus to return. And every generation thinks they are the generation. Every single one. The religious leaders can wash, rinse, repeat this end of the world, end of days, scare you, keep you in fear with every single generation because none of us are reading the Bible how an ancient Greek or an ancient Jew or Roman would have read the words of Jesus and understood what Jesus said. So they can just repeat this process over and over and over. And if you're an atheist, if you're a pagan, a neo-pagan, if you're just someone who hates Christianity, I really hope you are watching my videos so you can destroy these Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Islam, and modern Christianity. All right, you're going to use the words of Jesus. You're going to use the words of the prophets. You're going to use the apostles, and you're going to use the ancient historians to prove all this stuff already happened and everything going on today is absolute insanity. All right? All right. So let's make sure we understand that Jerusalem was the most prosperous city probably in world history at this point. It was the most beautiful city, the most fortified city. Most of the world trade went through Jerusalem. It connected east and west together. And the languages spoken in Jerusalem, in Judea, was Aramaic, and it was also Greek. And the priests probably spoke more Hebrew. They still spoke Hebrew during this time, but Aramaic and Greek were the two dominant languages. All right? And why this is important, not the first time I stepped into a church. The first time I stepped into a church, I was 14 years old. My friend brought me there, and I asked to go. My friend was, I'd never been into a church. I didn't know anything about God. I was raised completely secular. And I decided, maybe I should learn. So I went to a Pentecostal church, and, they're all falling on the ground and just acting really crazy. And when it came to me to go up and for the pastor to hit me on the head, and fall down, I said to myself, you know what, God, if you're real, make me fall. Make me act like all these lunatics, and I'll believe in you. And, when I went up and they hit me on the head, I'm not going to just do it because they're doing it. I really want God to show me he's real. And nothing happened to me, right? And so all they said to me was, oh, the Holy Spirit isn't with you. God isn't with you. And I left that church hating Christians, hating God, and hating Jesus. I didn't read the Bible. I was 14 years old. And I just left with this hatred and this anger. And then I went to a church later on. I was working on a banking documentary. And my little brother convinced me to go to a church with him. And if it wasn't for him, I never would have stepped foot in a church. And when I went to this church, the pastor was explaining Judea and how it was just this nothing land, a desert country. No one cared about the Jews in Jerusalem. It was this little tiny city, and it was on the outskirts of the Roman Empire, and he downplayed the role of who the Jews were and how powerful and beautiful this city was. So in my head, at that point, when I left that sermon, I left thinking that Jerusalem was a nothing city. It wasn't important. It was the city. It was the prize jewel of the Roman Empire, okay? Everything that pastor said was a lie, okay? So that's why I feel it's so important for me to tell you and teach you that no, Jerusalem was the most beautiful city in the world during the time of Jesus. Okay, it was the richest city in the world. There was more gold and wealth in Jerusalem than the entire Roman Empire combined. The only kingdom that could rival the Jews was Egypt, the two oldest civilizations at this point, the two oldest surviving cultures. And they were the two dominant ones, and there were more Jews living in Egypt than in Judea, all right? So understand that here we have the Wailing Wall, right? This is what we think is the temple. And when we read what Jesus said here, he says, "And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to show him the building of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See you not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down." Okay? And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and the end of the world? Now, so Jesus is saying there's not going to be one stone left upon another. And when we look at the Wailing Wall, they're praying at a wall with stones. So is Jesus a liar? Did Jesus lie to us when he said not one stone shall be left here? No, Jesus didn't lie to us. What's happening in this picture is the Jews are lying to us. This is not the temple. This is the fortress of Antonia. Okay, this is not the Temple Mount. So this is one of the greatest sleight of hands. The Jews have the entire world believing they're praying at the temple. And that what they're doing is they're hiding, they're hiding the true location of the temple. So this is what they're going to show you. And there's a mistranslation in Josephus. They're going to show you this image. Look at how big our temple was, and the temple was here, and the teeny tiny little Roman fortress here. Only 600 legionnaires lived in this little tiny fortress. And that's the mistranslation in Josephus. It's not 600 soldiers, it's 6,000 lived. Okay, and you're not going to fit 6,000 legionnaires and their families and all that stuff in this teeny tiny little fortress. This is not the temple. This is the fortress of Antonia. This became the temple of Jupiter, and then later a Christian church, and then later the mosques came with the Muslims. This is a more accurate drawing of what's described. And this is where the 6,000 Romans would have lived. This is the praetorium where Jesus was brought when he was put on trial. And over here is the true temple. And this is where not a single stone was left. Okay? So don't fall for the Jewish sleight of hand where they're praying at the fortress of Antonia and they're hiding the true temple location. So don't fall for their trick. All right. So now when we come to Luke, we have the same story, but now in this one it's changed a little bit. What's added is that the disciples are showing Jesus how beautiful the temple is. It's adorned with goodly stones and gifts. All right, because about 10% of the Roman wealth would find its way to Jerusalem every year. All right? The Roman soldiers were getting fed up with carrying all that gold to Jerusalem. The Colosseum of Vespasian, which we're going to talk about later, but that giant Colosseum in Rome was built by 20,000 Jewish slaves with all the gold taken from the temple in Jerusalem. So when you see the giant Colosseum, it's a marker from history to show us how much gold the Romans took from Jerusalem when they plundered it. All right? So again, it's confirmed in Josephus. This is the preface of Josephus with Wars of the Jews. And it says that our city, Jerusalem, had arrived at a higher degree of felicity than any other city under the Roman government, and yet, at last, fell into the sorest of calamities again. Accordingly, it appears to me that the misfortunes of all men from the beginning of the world, if they be compared to these of the Jews, are not so considerable as they were. While the authors of them were not foreigners neither, this makes it impossible for me to contain my lamentations. And that is something I do respect about Josephus. I do find when he's writing about the wars of the Jews, he's very honest. Okay? Where the Romans are guilty, he points it out. Where the Jews are guilty, he points it out. He's very neutral when he's condemning his own people. And understand that Josephus was a general. People say Josephus was a traitor. because he switched sides and joined the Romans. That's not true. Josephus was fighting for the provisional government, and Jerusalem was in a three-way civil war. And what happened was the Zealots, there were two terrorist factions, and one of the factions was trying to kill Josephus. Josephus was at war with John of Giscala. We're going to talk about him in the Revelation video. And what happened was the Zealots eventually murdered the entire provisional government. Josephus eventually, at this point he was already on the Roman side, but the provisional government was willing to work with the Romans if the Romans would meet their demands. The Zealots wanted all-out war. So Josephus, it's kind of like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So because of these terrorist factions were against the provisional government, Josephus kind of didn't have a choice but to join the Roman side. And as a priest, as a first century Levitical priest, he understood the prophecies. And he eventually pieced it all together that Jerusalem was doomed. Okay, and we're going to see that later on. When it comes to when Josephus is talking about Moses and the Bible and his interpretation of the Bible, I don't agree with how Josephus interprets some stuff. You know, for instance, Josephus will go into detail about Moses. Okay, Moses was an Egyptian general fighting in the Egyptian armies, and yeah, Moses probably was, because Egyptian history tells us that if you were an Egyptian noble, if you were an Egyptian priest, you had to fight in the army. All right, so it's not a far-fetched guess for Josephus to say something like, well, Moses was a soldier, but Josephus talks about battle campaigns Moses was on, but he doesn't mention the Pharaoh he served. He doesn't mention things that we need to confirm that Josephus actually knows what he's talking about, right? So there's some things in Josephus I just don't agree with. There are mistranslations in Josephus, but where Josephus is amazing is he's going to tell us exactly what first century Jewish priests believe, okay? And when it comes to the events he lived through and the events shortly before his time, I don't really question him. Okay, I'm not going to really question what he witnessed. I will look for mistranslations. I will look for where things don't match up with history. But for the most part, I trust his account because he lived through these events. So there's a difference between when he's interpreting what he says the Bible says from thousands of years ago versus to, you know, the wars of the Jews that he's actually living through. All right, so let's talk about the end of the world. So again, that the disciples here are asking him, when is the second coming and the end of the world? All right, now the first thing we need to do is I need you to imagine that you are someone living in the first century. You are not someone living in today. You don't speak English. In fact, imagine you can only understand ancient Greek. That's what I need you to do as we go through this exercise, all right? Because I'm not really interested too much in our translations today. I'm more interested to know how would someone in the first century understand the message of Christ. That's what I'm trying to figure out, all right? When we come to Matthew 24, we're going to look at this Greek word world, or this English word world, and we're going to look at the Greek meaning. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and the end of the world? Okay, in English, there's only one way to interpret this. The world is ending, okay? But then in Matthew 24:14, Jesus says, And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. And then Matthew 24:21, For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. All right, so the first thing what we notice is these are the same word in the English language, but they are three completely different words to an ancient Greek. So you need to understand that you're not living today, you're living back then. You just heard Jesus speak, and you heard three completely different words with three completely different meanings. Okay? So it's understandable why people believe that the world is ending because they're reading the English Bible. And understand something about the King James Bible. The King James Bible is a government-approved Bible. All right? A lot of the early translators, the early reformers, were murdered and killed and persecuted. Guys who were trying to translate the Bible so we can have it and we can understand it. A lot of these guys are killed, and then after, a government-approved Bible comes out. Okay, so I don't trust that. I don't trust a state-sponsored, government-approved Bible after a whole bunch of translators were just murdered and killed. All right? So, we're going to look at these three Greek words and try to understand how a Greek person would understand what Jesus actually said. So the first word being used is the word aeon. And the word aeon is not the world. It is an age. It is a course. It is a period of time. Okay, there's different ways to look at an age. An age can be eternal in the sense that the Bronze Age happened, it's over, it's done with, and it can't be undone. It's stuck like that forever. This is the Bronze Age. We then went into the Iron Age, and that course of time is forever known as the Bronze Age. And then we move into the Iron Age, and as we go forward in history, the ages change. And what's happening now is we are clearly entering into a new world, a new age. The stuff happening in our world today is unprecedented. It's mind-blowing. If people from the ancient world can see how we live today, they would think we're all gods, all right? So the first word is aeon. It's an age. It's a period of time. Then we have the word oikoumeni, and this is very important because it specifies the Roman world, the known world, the world that is non-barbarian to the Greeks and the Romans. That's what oikoumeni means. It doesn't mean the world. It's a very specific word. And no ancient Greek would have heard the word world, the universe, that the gospel has to reach the world for the end to come. That's not what it means to an ancient Greek. And then we have the word cosmos, and this can be used more for the world, the order of things, the universe, the cosmos, okay? All right, so now we're going to look at an example of the Greek word world. And let's take a look here at Luke 2, verse 1, where it says, "And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed." Okay? So if you're a King James onlyist, there's no mistakes in the Bible, it's the perfect word of God, then you have to believe that Caesar Augustus sent, messengers and emissaries to China, and that the Romans were demanding from the Chinese, you need to pay Caesar Augustus taxes. That Caesar Augustus, he clearly sent boats to the Amazon and said, all you Amazon jungle people, you need to pay the Roman Caesar taxes. The Eskimos, they got the message. The sub-Saharan Africans, envoys went to them too. The whole world is being taxed here, right? God doesn't make any mistakes, right? This is the perfect word of God. The whole world should be taxed. Is that how an ancient Greek speaker would have heard this? Absolutely not. How they would have heard it is very logical. And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the Roman Empire, the known world, the oikoumeni, should be taxed. What makes more sense to you? Okay? Did Caesar send emissaries throughout the entire world, like it says in English? Or does it make more sense as an ancient Greek that he sent emissaries and messengers and demanded that his world, the oikoumeni, the Roman Empire, should be taxed? Now this is very, very important because it's going to change the entire message of the Bible. One Greek word. All right? So how would a first century Greek or Jew understand the words of Christ? "And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and the end of the aeon," the age. "And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the Roman Empire, the oikoumeni, for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come." All right? And then here we have the third example. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world, the cosmos, the universe, to this time, no, nor ever shall be. Right? It's not oikumeni, it's not aeon, because it wouldn't make sense to an ancient Greek. So this is how an ancient Greek or Jew would have understood that the end will come when the gospel reaches the Roman Empire. Okay? When will the end come? When the gospel reaches the Roman Empire. Do you believe Jesus or your church? Okay, and I understand this is very difficult for a lot of you. You're now in a bad situation. If you're Roman Catholic, if you're an Eastern Orthodox, if you're a Lutheran, if you're a Jehovah's Witness, a Mormon, a Seventh-day Adventist, if you're a Pentecostal, you are now in trouble. You now have to make a decision. Do you side with your church or do you side with what Jesus said? Because all of these churches teach that the world is ending, the second coming is a future event, but we know if we're a first century Greek, Jew, or Roman listening to Christ speak, we know that the end will come when the gospel reaches the Roman world. All right? Now, another example I want to give, just because I'm not going to finish my series, so this was an example that I wanted to give in one of my last, one of my series that I didn't get to complete, and this is another example of how important it is to study the Bible in Greek, and why studying the Bible in Greek with history is so important. It's just, you're going to miss so much amazing history, that the Bible is actually saying so much more, but in the English translations, it just gets lost. And here's an example, okay? And this is I think, a very fascinating point. And let's just read what's happening in the story of Paul in the book of Acts. And it came to pass, as we went to prayer, a certain damsel possessed with a spirit of divination met us, which brought her masters much gain by soothsaying. The same followed Paul and us, and cried, saying, These men are the servants of the Most High God, which show unto us the way to salvation. Now, when you're reading this, okay, in English, you're just going to read right through it. You're just, okay, some woman, some girl possessed with some spirit, she's some diviner, she's probably some fraud. It's not nothing sticking out to you. You're just going to keep reading, and that's pretty much it. But if you know Greek history, and you look at the Bible in Greek, something really amazing is actually being said here. And it came to pass, as we went to prayer, a certain damsel possessed with a spirit of Pythia, of Python, okay, an oracle from Delphi, met us. So Paul isn't talking to just some damsel, some girl with the spirit of divination. Paul is confronting an oracle from Delphi. And if you don't know what that is, we're going to talk about that right now, because the entire oikumeni revolved around the oracle at Delphi. And what I'm going to show you is how we're going to compare some Greek history to the Bible, and how this one word is going to connect us to the oracle at Delphi. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how the entire book of Daniel revolves around the oracle at Delphi. That you can literally see God's hand in the Greek world through the oracle at Delphi, making the entire Bible and all the prophecies in Daniel come true. All right? So if you don't know the oracle at Delphi, this is the temple of Apollo, and Apollo is the son of Zeus, and he would be, I guess you can kind of say, maybe like the equivalent of Jesus to the Greek world. He's the son of one of their prime gods, the god who defied the Titans, and Zeus took power, and Apollo is his son, and he's really the prime god, I would say, of the Greeks, okay? And he's so famous, Apollo, and the oracle of Delphi was so important that when the Romans made their mythology, they never changed Apollo's name. He's the same god in both Roman and Greek mythology, unlike Zeus, who became, Jupiter, or, You can look at how Aphrodite became Venus, right? They changed all the names, but Apollo stayed the same. And this is the oracle of Apollo. If you don't know where Delphi is in Mount Parnassus, okay? And it's just north of Corinth. It's not far from Athens, and everyone went to the oracle at Delphi, right? So how it worked was, if you were a normal person, you would probably, I think it was 10 days' wages. It would cost the average person 10 days' wages. You had to go through a period of purification. Sacrifices had to be done. There was a lot you had to do to go see the oracle at Delphi. And it wasn't just for Greeks. We're going to see that in a moment. And we're going to see how the entire book of Daniel revolves around the oracle at Delphi. And just by the translators not taking into consideration how important this word is, and they poorly translated the Bible. Had they translated it properly, all this history would jump out at you, and you would go, wow, this is real first century history. Paul isn't converting some normal girl, some diviner. No, Paul is converting an oracle from Delphi who literally had the world, the oikumena, in their hands, okay? So, when you go there to Mount Parnassus in the mountains, written on the wall was a saying, know thyself, okay? And it would be, I think in Greek, it would be gnoti sautun, okay? Know yourself. And so you would approach the prophetess, the oracle, and you would see a young girl seated on a tripod above a fissure, like a crack in the mountain. And from this crack, a natural occurrence, gases would pour from this crack. And she would become mildly intoxicated and go into a trance. And then only the priests would be able to interpret the mumbling, kind of like what you see in the Pentecostal churches today. And the priest would then utter the prophecy from the oracle, from what this woman is saying. And the reason it says, know thyself, because this is their insurance policy. Okay, the oracle at Delphi, obviously there are frauds. Obviously it's a business. Obviously it's not true. But this is their insurance policy, because if you don't understand the prophecy, well, that's on you, not on them. All right, and we're going to see just how crafty this oracle was, okay, when they gave their prophecies, okay? And again, my whole point here is to show you how one poorly translated word, okay, how much you can miss by not understanding the Greek worldview of things and what the gospel and what the apostles and the book of Acts is actually trying to say. Okay, if you were a king going to Delphi, you didn't pay 10 days' wages. You gave gifts and wealth according, okay, you gave them gold and silver according to your wealth as a king. All right, so this is a big business. Not only is it big business, but their prophecies and what the advice that they give kings have the power to destroy empires. And we're going to see that right now. Okay, so in the book of Daniel, we have the stories of Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome, okay? And right now we're going to just cover some Greek and Medo-Persian history, and I'm going to show you the role of the oracle at Delphi. Okay, so we're going to look at King Croesus versus Cyrus the Great, okay? And the Bible says, thus saith the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden to subdue nations before him, and I will loose the loins of kings, to open before him the two-leaved gates, and the gates shall not be shut. So we know that Cyrus the Great is coming, the king of Persia. All right, this is a prophecy of the king of Persia coming. And when Cyrus rose up, all right, Cyrus has a remarkable story. And the first kingdom Cyrus is going to take, the book of Daniel says he's going to take 3 kingdoms. The first one he takes is his grandfather's kingdom, Media. All right, Cyrus is a Persian. He's half Persian. He's 1/4 Lydian and 1/4 Median. Okay, so his father was Persian. His mother was a mixture of Lydia and Media. And Lydia right now is where King Croesus is ruling, is probably the richest kingdom in world history at this point. Okay, they perfected gold and silversmith, like to make pure, nearly pure gold and silver coins. Our monetary system, okay, in the modern world, well, just recently we went off the gold and silver standard, but for thousands of years, the monetary system developed by King Croesus was our monetary system until we went on to just fiat debt-backed currency, okay? So this is a very important king and a very important kingdom in all of our history. And Cyrus the Great was actually, his mother was born as a result of a war between Lydia and Media. There was a battle called the Battle of the Eclipse when Nebuchadnezzar was conquering Egypt. The Medians went to conquer Lydia. They went to war, and the battle ended in an eclipse that scared the soldiers and generals to the point where they're going to make a peace agreement, and the princess from Lydia is going to marry the prince from Media, and that's going to be the mother of King Cyrus, which happened all because of this eclipse that happened. All right? So, what happens now is Cyrus the Great is marching on Lydia. He's just across the river Halys, and Croesus is going to invade him. Now, before all this happens, King Croesus sent messengers where? To the oracle at Delphi, right? He wasn't Greek, but he controlled Greek people who wanted to be free from him. All right? So these Lydians, they're going to bring gifts to the temple, instructed by their king Croesus to inquire at the oracle at Delphi whether or not he should send his army to fight Cyrus, the Persians, right? Or should he get allies first? What should he do? All right, so what happened was he sent gifts, he sent all this wealth to the oracle at Delphi, and I want you to really read the message given to him. That they said to him, the oracle said that if he should send an army against the Persians, he would destroy a great empire. Know thyself, okay? Gnatis sautun, know thyself. So this is the insurance policy kicking in. So whose fault is it if Croesus doesn't, if things don't go Croesus's way? Well, the irony in this prophecy is if he crosses the river Halys and attacks Cyrus and wins, the prophecy comes true. All right? If he crosses the river and he loses, the prophecy still comes true. This is the cleverness, the craftiness of the oracles at Delphi. The prophecy they give will come true left or right. It doesn't matter. Okay? So, now where it's interesting, and this is where the power of these oracles, is that they advised him that for him to discover the mightiest of the Greeks and make them his friends. So they do tell him, go find Greek allies. And the Greeks at this time are muscular athletes, covered in bronze armor from head to toe. They fought with swords, shields, and phalanxes with giant spears. These were soldiers you wanted in your army, especially if you're going against cavalry, which is what actually both the Medians and the Lydians were famous for their cavalry. So, the irony in this prophecy is that I think his name is Eurybates, and one of the Greeks are going to betray Croesus. So Croesus is going to listen to the oracle at Delphi. He's going to go. He's going to hire all these Greeks to fight for him, and all those Greeks are going to betray him. Okay, especially the people from Miletus. And what you're going to notice in this story, Miletus, Ephesus, Colossus, all these cities going on in this story are the cities that Paul visits throughout his journeys. Okay? So, what's going to happen is Croesus is going to cross the river, Cyrus is going to beat him. So here we have the Greek historians writing about the same events from the book of Daniel, but giving us an inside view as to why Cyrus was able to conquer Croesus and take over Lydia, making Cyrus now the richest man in the world, controlling two of the greatest empires the world had ever seen. And now he's going to march on Babylon and take that too. All right? So you can see the oracle at Delphi orchestrating stuff to make the book of Daniel come true. And now we're going to look at Daniel 11:2. And now I will show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia, and the 4th shall be far richer than they all, and by his strength and through his riches he shall stir up all against the realm of Greece. All right. So in this story, Daniel is clearly talking about the fourth king of Persia, Xerxes, the richest king of Persia, who's going to send the greatest invasion force into Europe, okay, to conquer the Ionians. Okay, and this is after the Ionian revolt, where the Ionians revolted. So ironically, all those Greeks that that betrayed King Croesus, right? Because the oracle said, go make Greek allies. Croesus did. Those Greek allies betrayed Croesus for Cyrus, thinking, hey, if we help this Persian king, he's going to free us. No, didn't go the way those Greeks planned. Cyrus did not care that they betrayed their king and helped him. Cyrus said, you're going to be my servants no matter what. Cyrus did not care. Okay, if anything, Cyrus didn't like the fact they betrayed their king and enslaved those Greeks anyways. So, what happens later with Xerxes versus Themistocles? So this is now the Persians are coming, and we have this man Themistocles. And Themistocles is rather a genius. And what happened actually right before the Persian invasion, the Medo-Persian invasion, was the Greeks got very lucky. The Athenians, the Ionians, they got very lucky. They found a giant silver vein of an enormous amount of silver, which they then converted into drachmas, which is the measurement of the Greek silver currency. And they had so much that every Greek citizen, every Athenian citizen, was given 12 or 10 drachmas. Okay, and Themistocles stood up in the assembly and said, "No, no, no! Do not divide the silver we found. Keep the silver together, and let's build a fleet of 100 triremes to patrol our waters." And at this time, they actually weren't too worried about the Persians. There were other pirates and other rivals of the Greeks that Themistocles wanted to deal with. And he said, don't divide the money, let's build a fleet, and then we'll just increase Athenian wealth every year with our trade. And it paid off, because now, I think 3 or 4 years later, the Persians are now coming. Thank God that the Athenians built this fleet, and now that they know that the Persians are coming, they send messengers where? To the oracle at Delphi. All right. So the Athenians had sent messages to the oracle at Delphi, and I'm just going to paraphrase all this. So pretty much what happens is the oracle at Delphi tells them, you know what? Why are you lingering here? Flee, run, get out of the city. You're doomed. You're done. The Persians are coming. You will be destroyed. Athens will burn. Run for your lives. Take your children, get on your boats, and go. And when the Athenians heard that message, they were very greatly dismayed. They were like, man, we cannot take this message back to Athens. So they get the bright idea, well, go back. Let's just go back let's get in line again, and let's get a second message. Let's this is, to me, it's extremely hilarious. We're not taking this terrible message back. Let's just get in line again, try it again, see what they say the second time. So they go back, and I guess I don't know what happened exactly, but the oracle does kind of give a second message, and that is Zeus will grant Athena a wooden wall of protection. Okay? So they bring this message back that we have to do something with wood, build a wooden wall, and that's going to keep Athens safe. And so they're thinking literally, we got to build a wall around the city. And Themistocles stands up and says, no, you're not reading the prophecy right. Again, know thyself. They're talking about boats. The ships, the wooden ships we build will be our walls. Okay? So that's how Themistocles understood it. And he stood up in the assembly, and everyone agreed with him. And they added another 100 ships. So I think the Athenians had about 200 ships. And then all the Greeks are now going to rally around Themistocles and Leonidas, right? The famous 300. So my point is, we can see that the book of Daniel is talking about all this stuff. And when we go to Greek history, to the oracle at Delphi, we can see what's happening in the Greek world to make the book of Daniel come true. And for me, it's rather amazing And it's completely lost if you're not studying the Bible in Greek. Okay? And again, here's another example that talking about Alexander the Great, and a mighty king shall stand up that shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken and shall be divided towards the four winds of heaven, north, south, east, and west, and not to his posterity, not to his children, nor according to his dominion which he ruled, for his kingdom shall be plucked up, even for others beside those. So when Alexander the Great, this is according to Plutarch, not Herodotus, right? This is obviously way after Herodotus' time. So Plutarch is writing about what happened when Alexander went to Delphi. And this is rather a funny story, in my opinion. And so again, going to the oracle at Delphi, the same woman that Paul is converting, the most famous oracle in the oikumene. And so Alexander goes, and he goes during a time where they're closed. They only prophesied once a month, and Alexander doesn't care. I need my prophecy now. I've got stuff to do. And when they said, sorry, we're closed, Alexander did not care about Apollo, did not care about the gods, disrespected all their traditions and customs, walked right in there, grabbed the oracle by the hair, pulled her out of the chamber, threw her on the floor, and the woman said, thou art invincible, my son. And upon hearing this, that is all Alexander needed to hear. He heard that, said, that's enough, you don't need to prophesy, I'm gone, I got the message I wanted, and left. Okay? And that gave Alexander the courage he needed to continue with his campaign to conquer Medo-Persia, exactly as Daniel prophesied, that this mighty king shall arise, right? And that his kingdom will be divided according to the four directions of the world. And when standing in Israel, we have Lysimachus in the north. If you were to go north, you'd hit his kingdom. If you were to go east, you'd hit the kingdom of Seleucus. South, the kingdom of Ptolemy. And west, the kingdom of Cassander. All right, so when you're reading this verse, and it just says a spirit of divination, when it's actually very clearly saying to the Greek-speaking world, Paul is converting an oracle at Delphi. And you can see that this girl was bringing a lot of money to her masters. They paid a lot of money to have this girl come, and she would get intoxicated. She's not possessed with a devil. When you're reading this in English, it's such a terrible translation, and it's absolute nonsense when you read it in English. But when you read it using ancient Greek, the ancient Greek words, their meanings, and how the Greeks would interpret this, the girl is intoxicated, right? The pneuma, the breath, right? That's what's coming out of here. The pneuma, which means breath, which also means spirit in ancient Greek. That's what's coming out of the mountain to intoxicate her. No different than her being here in Asia Minor. She's taking something to make her intoxicated. And Paul is going to pull that breath, that spirit, that pneuma out of her, sober her up, and this girl, this oracle, is going to realize that these men have serious powers and serve the one true God. And Paul didn't convert some damsel. He converted probably the biggest rival Paul had in the Greek-speaking world, the oracles at Delphi. Next to the Pharisees, these probably, the three rivaling ideologies would have been the oracle at Delphi, the Pharisees, and the Egyptian cults. These probably would have been the three dominating cults that Paul and Christ were battling during this time. And it's completely missed by reading this in English, all right? So that's my point. We learned about the oikumene. We learned about how, my whole point here is to show you how one poorly translated word can change the entire message of the Bible. Okay, so next we're going to cover this history. We're going to go through Josephus, Tacitus, the New Testament, and I'm going to show you all of these things already happened in perfect sequence. Everything from the wars, the rumors of wars, the famines, the earthquakes, the Christian persecution, the second coming, These people, literally recorded by both the Jews and the Romans, I want you to imagine being a first century person and you saw a heavenly army in the skies, in the clouds, and the light that made a light that turned darkness into day, and a thunderous voice from heaven, God saying, I am leaving this place. You saw stars falling over Jerusalem, absolutely everything. You saw this supernatural event, and immediately after, everything in the book of Revelation comes true. Jerusalem's destroyed, everything is fulfilled. The gospel had already reached the oikumene, the Roman world. All right, so that's going to be the next section. We're going to talk about this. All right, and I'm going to leave everything here just because this is already an hour long. So anyways, I hope you guys learned something. I hope you enjoyed that, and I look forward to finishing this and showing you that this is a first century book written for first century people, and that we have a country to fight for. We have a cause to fight for. Don't fall for all this religious nonsense. Don't sit back and wait for the world to end, because that's not what Jesus said. That is not Christianity. All right? But unfortunately for you, you are stuck in a position right now to choose between Christ and your church. All right? So anyways, I hope you guys are well, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys soon.